2, 1, action.
All right. All right. That was fun. Hopefully that sounded okay.
Sounded great.
Sean, I'm going to turn it over to you for our Zoom tips and tricks.
All right, just a couple of things for today. Most of you have been in this class for a little while, it seems, so I think you're getting the hang of it. I got to say, I'm pretty impressed. Every time I come on here, it's better and better. I think the first time we did this, I just saw a bunch of foreheads and chins on the videos, and now you're all proper and right in front of the camera with headphones on, ready to go. It's great. But just in case you're coming in and maybe you haven't done this before, if you do want your video on and maybe you can't get it on, that's on the bottom left of your screen. If you want to turn that on, you can. It just says start video if you're on a computer. If you don't want your video on and maybe you somehow accidentally turned it on, it just says stop video. So you can just start or stop your video anytime. We like to see you. Usually it's fun for me to see you bobbing your heads, you know. But also in the middle of your screen on the computer, you'll see something called participants. If you kind of hover the mouse over there, or maybe if you're on an iPad or iPhone, you can usually tap your screen and you get some more options that come up. But what you want to do is use a feature there called raise hand. Now this is just as if you were in a regular class in person. If you have a question, you can raise your hand. Obviously, you'll probably notice you're all what's called muted, which means you can't say anything unless we ask you to, So to get our attention, just like in person, just raise your hand. And that is in the middle of your screen. It says participants. You'll touch that, and then it'll bring up a little window that says raise hand on it. And it also gives you a list of everybody who's on here. You can message people, or you can, I think that's about it. You can message people. You can actually rename yourself there if you want. If sometimes we call on people, it says iPhone number 2. So if you want to put your name in that, you can. You don't have to, but if you wanted to say your name, you can rename yourself. But I think that's about all. If you raise your hand and somebody answers the question, you can also lower your hand, same way. But I think that's all we need to go over today. If you have any questions or need any help with something, some people might have issues with sound or things like that. You can use the chat feature on the bottom as well. And you can individually message me if you'd like to. I'm usually on there typing away, helping people. If you have anything at all, just let me know if you could figure that out. So I'll send it back to Bryan, and we'll see what we got in store for you today.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. It's great to see you all again here on Zoom. And looks like we got 62 people today. So I'm still am always impressed. I've done this class a few times this week and did a few sessions last week. And I think it's just so cool to have all of us together here. So what I wanted to talk about today is another really important thing, I think, to any hobby player. So as a hobby musician, which is what we all are, right? When we're playing our instruments, there are two really important things, and that is your melody instrument, whatever you choose to play with the right hand, and your band. You know, what music style are you going to play with? So when I opened up my series of stuff, my workshops last week, I talked about the band, right? That's what we did. We dissected who is in my band, you know, with the drummer, the bass player, and all that stuff. So that's one huge component, is who's in my band. The other big thing for us as hobby players is the melody. What am I going to do with my right hand? You know, the melody is the part of the song that you would sing. That's the part that everybody recognizes. And so to me, that's maybe of the utmost importance. But I would say your music style and your melody sounds are the two most important things that you could deal with as a hobby style player. And so today we're going to talk about melody sounds and how to access the most popular ones, how to do it very easily, and hopefully how to get you sounding great without too much button pushing. Okay, so what I wanted to start off with is talking about one kind of idea that, depending on your instrument, might be called one of three different things. And on many instruments, it's called rhythm preset. So if you have any instrument except for an E series, so that would be anything like an SU series, an A series. And if you don't know, I said this in the last class, if you don't know what model number instrument you have, like you might know, oh, I have a Prestige, but you know that it's an A5000. That's important, okay? Because when we talk about, oh, this is an A series, this is an E series, this is an SU series, you want to make sure you know what model number instrument you have. But many of the instruments, most of them will say rhythm preset, and that would go for anything like a Royale, a Stardust, a Prestige, a Legend, a Sterling, Patriot, Liberty. Once we get to the E series, so even on the Easy One, right, because that's an E series instrument, you're going to have this a very similar feature, but instead of rhythm preset, it's called style setup. So any E series instrument, Easy 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, Fanfare, Journey, Inspire, Rialto, all the way up to the Aria, is an E series instrument. If you have an E series, you're going to have style setup instead of rhythm preset. And if you're an owner of our brand new SD line of instruments, either the Freedom 3 or the Discovery 3, you're going to have what they call auto setup. And that's AUTO, auto setup in the middle. So whether you have auto setup or style setup or rhythm preset, it's basically the same thing. And we're going to get into all that stuff today. But what it does is the most important part. And hopefully this is a review for many people. But what that does, that feature, is it's going to turn on, I'm on an Easy 4 here. Let me put my camera down a little bit so you can see better. Okay, so I'm on an Easy 4 here. I will go over to the Sterling today as well. But I'm going to start off on the Easy 4, and it works the same on every instrument. That's what's so cool about this idea of the style setups and rhythm presets, is that no matter what you have, if I touch the home button, which is kind of like the reset button, it just turns off the instrument, turns it back on. If I touch one button, let's put the camera over here so you can see this, so you know I'm not cheating. I'll touch one button that says country, meaning that's going to turn on a country music style. Automatically, without me touching anything else, I've got a country sound for my melody. Country guitar, right? Now on this instrument, I'm on two keyboards, so I also happen to have one down here too, on the lower right keyboard. So this is going to be like a honky-tonk piano. Okay? And then again, that beautiful country guitar up top. If I touch just one button over here, Latin, now that country guitar doesn't really go so well with the Latin band, right? So now they've automatically changed. I only touched one button. I just switched my music style to Latin. Now I've got vibes and Spanish guitar. if I go to something like, I don't know, like the rock band, touch one button, rock. Now I have that rock organ and a rock guitar. So just that one feature, that style setup, is going to give me those really good sounding melody instruments that go perfectly with whatever style I've picked out. Now, if you're on a one keyboard instrument like an Easy 1, an Easy 2, an Easy 3, you'll just get the one melody sound. Okay, if you're on a two keyboard instrument, you'll get one for the upper and one for the lower keyboard. Now, on the Easy 4, you still just have that one style setup. We call that style setup 0. They actually start with 0 instead of 1. So even though you just have the style setup 0, you still get two sounds because you have the two keyboards there. Okay. Now, starting with the Easy 10, which I don't have in front of me, but what you'll have is right about here, if you can see on the screen, you'll have numbers in the middle. And on the Easy 10, you'll have, in fact, 5 numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, that means in addition to your style setup 0, which would give you, if I was on Latin again, that would give you the vibes and Spanish guitar, you have an additional 5 upper and lower sounds. So if I were to touch number 1, it would give me an additional melody sound on the top and on the bottom. If I touch number 4, it would give me another one on the top, on the bottom. Now I'm going to take you on a little trip over here, a little journey, you might say, to the journey. So Sean usually gives me my traveling wee.
Wee.
Oops. Now let's see if we can get the...
I don't know about that one. Sorry.
I know it's a little angled there. I'm trying to get as close as possible. But if you can see on the screen, just below where the display screen is, there are 8 buttons there. Now, you may not be able to see the numbers. There are those kind of dark gray buttons just above the keys, between the keys and the screen. And they're numbered 1 through 8. So whereas on the Easy 10, you would have 5. On the Fanfare and Journey, you have 8. And that means that in addition to that style setup 0 that you get, you have 8 additional upper and lower keyboard sounds that are going to be perfect for whatever style. Remember, they change every time. Remember what I was on Latin or standards or rock or gospel, it changes automatically. So you don't have to program anything. Now, if you have a higher end instrument, like, I'll show you on the Sterling here in a minute, or anything that has the maximum, which would be 10. So you still get that style setup or rhythm preset 0, but then you get 1 through 10, and that would be the most that you have. But just keep in mind, it works the exact same way, no matter what instrument you have. If you just turn it on and you touch one button, whatever style of music you think you want to play, I sometimes call them the genre buttons, Latin, gospel, standards, whatever you want to play, it automatically sets it up. Now, I was saying on the Easy 10, you have 5, in the Fanfare and Journey, you have 8, and you could have a maximum of 10. I just want to take anybody back who, I know we have some students here that have probably been with Fletcher for quite a while. If anybody remembers the Majesty was the top of the line instrument quite a while ago, but it was like the aria equivalent. Okay, this was a big deal back in the day. And it had 3 rhythm presets. And I was like, wow, how did they get 3 sounds per style? Like, nobody could believe it. And then there was a special edition of that instrument called the Millennium. The Millennium had 5, right? And then going forward, once they came out with the Royale and then beyond, that was the first big window instrument. And then they were able to put 10, which is, remember, it's really 11 in there. Okay, so you get a full 11 for the upper and 11 for the lower. So anytime you touch a style, and I'll take us over to the Sterling here in just a second to show you, anytime you touch a style, you get 22 melody sounds by touching one button. And to me, that's really cool. So I'm going to travel over here, and Sean, if you could get that graphic ready on hand. We're going to pull us over to the Sterling here. The art of not tripping over cables has been something I've become very good at in the last 2 weeks. All right, so here we are at the Sterling. And I'll show you a close-up in a minute, but right here in the center, and it's the same on every instrument, whether you have an Easy 10, or above, the presets are going to be just below the display screen. So you're having numbers 1 through 10. And what this means is that if I touch that Latin style, I had a different one selected, but if I touch just one button, Latin, it's going to pull up the same sounds that I had over there on the Easy 4. Okay, so if I have my bossa nova on, I still have the vibes and the Spanish guitar, right? But then I can start going through and touching the numbers in the middle, and each number is going to give me a different sound for the upper keyboard and a different sound for the lower keyboard. So let's touch number 4, right? Strings. Number 6 is trumpet. Number 9 is the mariachis. Lower keyboard too, right? Accordion there. So each one is going to give me a different sound. And I'm going to kind of jump around here a little bit, but I did want to make sure I mention this because if you have a big window instrument, you have probably one of my favorite buttons on the entire instrument. Okay. Now, if you have, let's say, an Easy 10, let me backtrack a second. An Easy 10 or above will tell you what instrument sound you're on. Okay. So if you're playing on an Easy 10 or a fanfare or something like that, and you look on your screen, it's going to tell you, if you're on that same setup 0, it's going to tell you for Latin that you have vibes and then guitar on the lower keyboard, which is really nice. And that's a feature that they call active preset display. Okay, now if you have a big window instrument, there's one button that you can touch. On most instruments, it's going to be custom number 4. And that's if you go all the way on your lower keyboard, all the way down here to the left, there's going to be right over here buttons that say custom. And it'll either say 1, 2, 3, or up to 4, or on the bigger instruments up to 5. It's mostly, on most instruments, it's going to be number 4. On some, it will be number 3, though. And what happens when you touch that, it's one of my favorite things of all time. It shows you in the window all of the sounds that are in your rhythm presets. And to me, that can't be overstated enough because, when you're, even us as Fletcher employees or concert artists, we're around these instruments all the time, and there's no way that you can remember all of the stuff that's in these instruments. You're talking about thousands and thousands of presets. However, when I touch that active preset display, it shows me right in the window. So there's no guesswork. So I pull up Bossa Nova. I know I'm going to play like Girl from Ipanema. And I look on the screen and I think, okay, well, number 1 is guitar. I like that. Number 4 is the orchestra. I like that. Number 9 is mariachis. And, number 8 is society piano. And I can pick out the sounds that I want to use. And all I had to do is touch Latin and then number 4, and I see everything. And it's all there, and I didn't have to do very much work at all. Okay. So depending on what instrument you have, you'll either have at least one style setup or one rhythm preset. And that's really cool because that's for any instrument, okay? Any instrument from the easy one right on up. And that means that no matter what, when you start, you're going to have a great style and a great sound. And if that's not your favorite sound, then we have to learn how to change it, right? And that's why these buttons come in really handy, these preset buttons or setup buttons. Now, if you don't have the setup buttons in the middle, like if you don't have the numbers 1 through 5 or 1 through 8 or 1 through 10, you still can change your sounds. That's kind of a separate thing. I don't want to focus on that too much today, but if that's the case for you, make sure you contact one of your local PAs at your store and they can tell you how to switch the sounds. I don't know if you saw me when I was on the Easy 4, I was kind of fumbling trying to find my string sound there in the middle. But sometimes it can be a little tricky, but you can do it. If you do have the numbers in the middle, it's much, much easier. And if you have the screen that tells you all of the sounds, that's the supreme right there. You got it made. So when I'm playing, I don't know if anybody caught my concert that I did on Friday. I was on Zoom and I think on Facebook sometimes. We had some issues with Facebook, I think. But when I was playing, I was using almost exclusively just the rhythm preset sounds. Because if you figure for any style that you turn on, you're getting 22 sounds. If you have a big window instrument like this, 22 sounds, right? Upper and lower keyboard. And how many are you going to use in a song? Maybe 4, 5, 6. So that should be plenty for most people to pick a few of their favorites. There are a few other things I wanted to mention for rhythm presets before we go on to something else. Sean, can you pop up that graphic?
I think I did the wrong one. Hold on.
That's all right. I realized I didn't have my original sound on either. I don't know if that makes much of a difference.
This is weird. It keeps going to the wrong one for some reason automatically.
That's okay. If you can find it, I'll just keep talking.
Yeah.
What's really cool is that, so starting with the Royale was the first one that had this. There was this formula, and I believe if you took Robert's class a few weeks back, he mentioned this, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time, but if you do have a question on this, make sure you raise your hand, because I think this is a really cool thing to know. There is a formula for the rhythm presets. Now, I will say that this applies to the instruments that have 1 through 10 only. Okay, so if you have 1 through 5, this is not necessarily going to be the same, and if you have 1 through 8, it's not necessarily going to be the same. But we'll talk more about that in a minute. If you have numbers 1 through 10 in the middle, so like here on the Sterling, there's going to be a formula, which hopefully you can see on your screen, that all of the music styles will follow. Now, this is really cool because, and again, I think Robert emailed this to everybody. If you didn't get it, make sure you contact one of us. We'll make sure you have this graphic, because I don't want everybody having to scribble all this out on paper. So I'm not going to cover too much on this because, like I said, I think Robert did this with you all, but what's really cool is that this applies to any style that you pick, right? So that, I highlighted the string or strum last class. So if I'm on country, it's probably going to be fiddles and guitar, right? Who would you picture as the string players in a country band? Fiddle and guitar. All right, if I go to big band, and I'm on number 4 still, that fiddle and country guitar would have no place in a big band, at least none that I've seen. So you get jazz guitar. All right, if I go to something like, march, I'm going to get a big string section. Okay, if I go to, let's go to something like rock, right? Most rock bands aren't going to have a big string section. What they do have is rock guitar, right? You picture who would be the string players in a rock band? Rock guitar. Okay, so that's going to change, and in fact, everyone, 0 through 10, will change with every style that you pick. I also want to mention that you can only use these style setups or rhythm presets with a rhythm style, with a music style, okay? Because by the very nature of what they are, right, they're a group of sounds, of melody sounds that are picked out for that style. Well, if you didn't select the style, how would it know to put the sounds there, right? So you have to pick a style, and then the instrument says, okay, well, Bryan picked country, and I'm on Texas toe tapper. Well, I'm going to put these 22 sounds here that somebody like Bill Curry already picked out. So instead of you having to think, I don't know if anybody ever had one of these instruments like the Majesty, where you had a number pad in the middle and you had to put, okay, well, if I want country guitar, I got to touch 167 and I put it here. Oh, wait, no, that was the wrong one. Let me try it again. 167, I put it in. Okay, I think that's right. Oh, no, I didn't turn on the upper keyboard. And then 8 measures have gone by on your song, right? So instead of that, they did all the hard work for us. They put all the sounds in there. So as soon as I touch Texas toe tapper, in this case, I touch my magic number 4 button, and I see on the screen all of the sounds. There's 22 sounds there that I can pick from that I didn't have to program at all. I just touch the button, or in fact, I can just touch right on the screen if I want to. Okay. Does anybody have any questions up to that point? I don't want to, I'm hoping this is mostly a review so far. I don't see any hands raised. Is anybody flailing, Sean?
I see one hand raised. I don't see any flailing, though. That's different.
All right, looks like we got a question from Joanne.
You might have to unmute yourself, Joanne. It should come up on your screen to unmute.
How do I print that screen you just had up there?
Well, Robert will email it out if he hasn't already.
Okay.
And it just depends on your printer for the most part.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, I have sent that out in the past, but I'm going to do it again.
Okay. Any other questions anybody has so far? All right. So I did want to mention this too, as far as rhythm styles, or sorry, as rhythm presets go. There's a certain formula not only for the melody sounds, but as far as your arrangements that happen with almost all of the styles. They didn't do it on every single one, but they did it on many of them. And that is on rhythm presets 1 and 2. I don't know if you guys remember this last week, but we talked about the Orchestra Plus being part of your band, right? Orchestra Plus are the fancy players. If you touch rhythm preset 1 or 2, what happens is Orchestra Plus is actually going to shut off automatically. In addition to you getting the different sounds that you get when you touch that number, 1 or 2, you're going to see you're going to hear the Orchestra Plus will automatically turn off. So listen, this is a big band style. This is how it comes on. So this would be preset 0. Okay, now I'm going to touch number 1. Number 1. Hear the Orchestra Plus turned off. Okay. Now if I touch number 2, not only does the Orchestra Plus go off, but also drum variation turns on. So I'm going to get not only the orchestra to be silent, but I also get a different drummer. So check this out. This is the original, preset 0. Now we're going to go to number 2, rhythm preset 2. So you hear that? It's a simpler drummer in this case. Okay. So, and also, so not only number 2, but numbers 4 and number 6 also turn on that drum variation. And again, it's not 100% of the time, but it's usually. So 1 and 2 turn off Orchestra Plus. 2, 4, and 6 turn on your drum variation. And then whatever your last 2 numbers are, your highest 2 numbers that you have. So if you have 1 through 10, this would be on numbers 9 and 10. If you have 1 through 8, this would be 7 and 8. If you have 1 through 5, this would be 4 and 5. Again, almost always, not 100%, is going to turn on harmony for your upper keyboard. So you're going to get some kind of big sound. You can see on the screen there, number 9 says ensemble and number 10 says finale. And keep in mind, this doesn't necessarily have to be for a finale, but it's just if you want one of those big sounds. So if I want some kind of big full section, you know, like a saxophone section or a brass section or some big full orchestral sound, that's going to be on your highest 2 numbers that you have. Okay. And I do want to mention, too, that some instruments have what they call vintage. Okay, so this is kind of cool. Let me change my camera here. Hopefully you can see me all right. So on some instruments, this is going to be on some of the higher-end E-series. So this would be if you have an Inspire, a Rialto, a Marquis, a Grand Marquis, or an Aria. Okay, so if you have any of those 5 instruments, this applies to you. You're going to have a button that says vintage, and it's going to be pretty close to your numbers 1 through 10. Okay, and what vintage means in this case, when we first saw it, at least I thought it was like vintage sounds, you know, older sounds, or if you prefer, you know, more nostalgic type sounds or something. In fact, that's not what it is. What vintage means is that when you touch that, it's going to be another group of your style setups or rhythm presets that follow that formula that Sean showed you in that graphic. Okay, so those numbers 1 through 10, where 3 is organ, 4 is strings, 8 is piano, 6 is solo, et cetera, et cetera. The vintage applies to that formula, not necessarily vintage instrument sounds. In fact, some of them are really, really great sounds too. When I play on an E-series instrument that has that, I almost always use vintage because when I was coming up with Fletcher, I learned that formula. So I kind of counted on the fact that when I touch number 4, it would be string or strum, 8 would be piano, And so if you have an instrument that might have like a fanfare or journey, for example, those have really, really great melody sounds built into your style setups. But that formula doesn't necessarily apply. The confusing part is it does sometimes. Sometimes you'll touch number 4 and it'll be strings. Other times you touch number 4 and it's saxophone. So it's just a good thing to know what sounds you have available, and when you're about to go touch your next number, you know what it's going to be. So if you do have that big window, again, that's extra helpful to use your active preset display and make sure you know what's going to be in there. Okay. So I think that's about all I have for your rhythm presets. Does anybody have any questions on that before I go on to the next part here? Rhythm preset, style setup, vintage, or auto setup on the Estes. Hoping everybody's pretty familiar with that. Looks like we got a question from Elizabeth.
Well, maybe.
Oh, maybe not. Maybe she changed her mind.
So I'm guessing got
Don't
answered.
be shy, guys. If you have a question, please do ask.
I guess we can move on. Keep going.
I
Oh,
think
there's
Bryan-
Elizabeth. One more time. Here we go. Elizabeth, you might have to. You should be there now.
Nope. It looked like she was just unmuted for a second.
Yeah. Well, we'll go ahead and move on for now. We'll see if we can get back
Okay.
to it a little later.
If you can unmute yourself, Elizabeth, just feel free to interrupt. It's okay. So I always want to
Oh,
start
wait,
with.
there she is. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Appreciate it.
No, I can't hear you for some reason.
Maybe try typing your question out into the chat, Elizabeth, if we can't hear you.
Yeah, we can continue for now.
Yeah. So the reason I like to start with those is because those are the easiest ones to play. No matter what instrument you have, you turn on your style and you just go to town. There's no extra work involved. You don't have to load anything. You don't have to save anything. You don't have to do anything except for just pick what genre you want to play. I want to play Broadway. You touch Broadway, and however many setups you have, whether it's just setup 0 or 5 or 10 or anything in between, and you just start playing. And you're guaranteed to sound good. And I can't tell you how many concerts I've played, going all over Florida and whatnot, playing on similar instruments to this, the Sterling or Marquis or whatever. And I just use the style setups or the rhythm presets, and oh my God, it sounds so great. Well, I'm just using the sounds that are built in because that's what's easy. Sometimes you don't know what instrument's going to be at a store, and if you have a USB stick that you've saved for a Marquis, they don't have a Marquis. Well, then what are you going to do? So I like to familiarize myself with the stuff that's built in. And going forward with that concept, the next most popular style, in my opinion, of melody sounds that you can play with are called your category presets or your category setups if you have an E series. And category setups start off on the fanfare. So if you have a fanfare or a journey or above, and certainly if you have a bigger instrument like a Sterling or a Marquis, you have all these. So, Sean, if you pop up the Sterling graphic there first, this is what your category presets look like. If you have an A series or an SU series, so if you have something like a Royale, a Stardust, a Palladium, Prestige, Legend, Sterling, Patriot, Liberty, it should look pretty much like that. And what's nice about the category presets as opposed to the rhythm presets or style setups is that these can be used with or without a style. Remember, the rhythm presets and style setups must be used with a style or else the instrument doesn't know what sounds to put in there. The category presets can be used anytime. So if you're just feeling like playing something just super easy, no background at all, you just want to touch the easy button and go, I can touch, let's say, big band, and what I have is a group of setups, and I can again touch my magic number 4, and it's going to show me on the screen. So now I have 22 big band sounds. All right, that's pretty cool. I just touched big band, and now I'm going to touch the easy button. Okay, so just put on the easy, and then I can play something, whatever I want. Anybody ever try to do a smash chord and then you end up with E flat 13 or something? That's what just happened to me. So when I touch big band, I get that group of sounds, and I didn't have to worry about setting anything extra up. I just knew what melody sounds I wanted, and then I touched the easy button, and that was it. Now, if I show you here, maybe can you pop that first graphic up again, Sean? So you're going to see stuff like theater, country, big band, show, and Latin. Get you back down here. And on the Sterling and on most of the instruments up to the E series, which we'll get to in just a second, we'll have these white buttons right here. So theater, country, big band, show, Latin. And then there's a really important one, which is called more. Okay, this one on the far right of this little group here. Now, when I touch more, what happens is you're going to see something like this. I'm going to zoom us in here. All right, can you toggle me back up, Sean? And what you're going to see is something that looks like this. Now, if you look on the right side of the screen, this is, again, on the Sterling. So if you have a double wide window, it's going to show up on the right. If you have just a regular big window that's like a square, it'll show up on the only screen that you have. And if you have a huge window like a marquee or above, it'll be in the top right. Okay, and you'll see it says more categories. And it says like sacred, modern, jazz, nostalgic, lush. And what's so cool is that each one of those, if I touch one of those, it doesn't represent just one sound or one type of sound. It's a whole category of 22 sounds because you have 11 setups, upper and lower. So I've been using nostalgic because that's probably my favorite one out of here. So what I'm going to do is touch nostalgic. You can see that's highlighted on the screen. Then I'm going to come over here, touch my custom number 4. And now, check that out. I called nostalgic the name category because look at all those name players in there. We got Louis Armstrong, Harry and Benny. We got the Dorseys. We got Dennis Awe. We got the Stradivarius violin. We got Liberace over there. We got Lombardo's sax and brass section. So this is just so cool. And whenever I get to the nostalgic part, I can't help but just do a little bit of playing. So if you'll indulge me, I'm going to show you some of these nostalgic sounds real quick. Isn't that so cool? I just love those nostalgic sounds.
Beautiful.
But why I wanted to show you that, and I will show you one other category here before we're done too. But when you touch that more button, I just want to make sure everybody knows when you see those things on the screen that says like nostalgic, lush, bells, etc., that those each represent 22 different sounds because you got 11 sounds for the upper and 11 for the lower. And then this is where somebody usually jumps in and says, but wait, there's more. If you look on the screen, on the lower right, you should be able to see a virtual button on the screen that says Next. And this is a really important button because watch what happens when I touch Next. Can you see all the titles on the screen changed? So now I have a whole other group, another 8 titles there, Around the World, Organ and Strings, Pianos Plus, Sound Effects. Each one of those also represents 22 different sounds. If I touch Next again, you can see it changed again. Now I have 22 more sounds. And this is beautiful stuff, like the theater organs, finales is really cool. One of the things I love to do is do finales, and number 10 is one of my favorites. And what that does is it automatically kicks in this huge timpani sound, so you can use it for, like it's called a big finale or something like that, or even a big intro. But check this out. This is just easy play. Gives me goosebumps every time I play that. I love that. It's such a big sound. So that's called big finale in your finales category. But anyway, the point being, when you get to that more section, you want to make sure you touch next page, next page, next page, and then make sure you explore all the different categories that you have. Because if you don't go through all those, you're going to be missing out on some really great sounds. Now, I did want to mention too, if you have an E-Series instrument that has a big window, so like an Inspire, Rialto, Marquis, Grand Marquis, Aria. Sean, do you have that other graphic? It's a little bit different to get to your categories. So what they did typically with the E-Series instruments, and in fact some of the A-Series too, but specific to the E-Series, they eliminated a lot of the buttons while adding more features. Now that's cool, right? Less buttons, more stuff. That's right up my alley. So instead of having these on the panel like theater, country, big band, show, Latin, and more, all you have is a category select and then an on-off. Okay, so what category select allows you to do is when you touch that, all of your your categories will pop up in the window. Okay, so you touch category select, and then you would touch next if you want to keep going, and next or previous, and you can scroll through all your categories. But then you also need to touch the on-off button, which is right next to it. You can see it there in the graphic. You need to touch the on-off in order to make sure that that's activated, because just selecting it will not do it. So that's something that I kind of had to learn, because when I touched just the select, I thought it was activated. But you got to make sure you touch that on button as well to make sure that that's actually on. Okay. And if you have some of the upper end E-Series instruments, I mean, man, you got thousands of sounds. I mean, really, you can really explore some of these categories, and there's something for every occasion. Some of them are grouped by kind of genre of music, like love songs or something like that. Some of them are just more, like nostalgic, just kind of the sound. Some of them are grouped by instrument, like theater organs. So I would highly, highly encourage you to go through that and explore the sounds that you have, just keeping in mind that each title on the window is 22 sounds. I mean, to me, that never gets old. I think that's so cool. If you use your upper and lower keyboard, you have just all these sounds that are built in, and you didn't have to program any, right? This is without saving anything to a stick or a disc if you have an SU series. This is just built into the instrument, thanks to Bill Curry and Jim Vogelman and I'm sure a lot of other folks too. But they've done all the hard work, and then all you have to know is just how to access those melody sounds. And so hopefully after this class that you'll be able to do that, whether you're going to use the rhythm presets or style setups that come on just automatically, right, when you turn on your instrument, or if you're going to explore and do some categories. I did want to say one other thing. I think I left this out. I've taught this class twice this week, and I can't remember if I said it this class. But when you first turn your instrument on, so it doesn't matter if you have a Sterling, that's what I'm on here, but if you have a Sterling or an Easy One or whatever, it's all the same. And I'm going to reset it here just to show you. When you turn your instrument on, your rhythm preset or style setup button is going to light up orange. Okay? What that means is that it's in standby mode. In other words, you have not selected a style yet. So remember I said it doesn't know what sounds to put in here until you select a style, right? Because they're dependent on that music style. So right now it's orange. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but if I touch a music style, it turned to red. Probably didn't show up too well on the screen, but anyway, you can trust me. Try it on your own instrument. If it shows up orange, all that means is that you have not yet selected a style, and therefore the instrument doesn't know what sounds to put in there yet. So as soon as I touch Latin, it says, oh, all right, I got to put Latin sounds in there. And if I decide to change my mind, I want to play Broadway, now it's all Broadway sounds. So if you ever see it orange, that just means that you have not yet selected a style. And then if you watch this light here, the rhythm preset light or style setup, if I go to categories and touch, let's say, big band, you can see that light went off because you can't be on both rhythm preset and category preset at the same time. So if I'm on category, that's going to be lit up. Okay, if I'm on rhythm preset, that'll be lit up.
All right, I think we got a lot to
That's
work
about all I
on.
had. Does anybody have any questions? Don't be shy.
If there aren't any questions, we can probably go to Robert for some announcements. We've got a couple I see here.
We got a couple there.
Cecilia, it should ask you to unmute, so go ahead.
Yes, I don't see my orange red lights that you just said light up on my organ. I haven't picked up a rhythm yet. I don't see anything that lighted up. Where is it supposed to light up?
What instrument do you have, Cecilia?
I have a Prestige.
A Prestige?
Yes.
So when you turn the instrument on, there, if you can see my screen here, just to the left of your numbers 1 through 10 should be something that says Rhythm Preset, and it should be a purple button, and that should light up orange when you first turn it on.
Rhythm Preset.
Yeah.
Where? Point it out, please, again. Point it in your, where is the Rhythm Preset?
So if you look at your numbers 1 through 10 in the middle, and you go just to the left of number 1, there should be a purple button that says Normal Rhythm Preset.
Oh, okay, yeah, normal lights up. When I take a style, let's see, orange, red. Okay,
Then it should turn
light
from...
up. Yeah, it did. Okay.
All right, great.
All right, Winnie, let's see. Oop, wrong button. Go ahead, Winnie.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Hello, one more time. If I wanted to use just the category setups, I don't have to have a rhythm style, but I have to have the easy button on?
Nope. You actually don't have to have the easy button on, but I would recommend that unless you're a traditional player, meaning that you're going to play all full chords and pedals.
Okay, so put the easy button on, but no rhythm, but then I can go to my categories and experiment.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we had looks like Phyllis and Jerry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I understand what the vintage button is not, but I still don't know what it is.
Okay, so when the E series came out, starting with I guess the Easy 10 was the first one in the line that had the setup buttons, right? They kind of developed the style setups very similar to, but not exactly like the rhythm presets. And one of the things that they strayed from, even up through the instruments like an Inspire or something, that does have 1 through 10, but it doesn't follow the formula that we were all used to. So in other words, like the thing that Sean had put up where 4 is strings and 8 is piano and 6 is solo, the regular or normal style setups did not follow that. And so eventually when some of the larger instruments came out, starting with the Inspire, they thought, well, a lot of people really liked that formula, you know, myself included. I really liked being able to touch number 4 and it was strings or strum. And I would touch number 4 and it would be trumpet, you know. So vintage follows that original formula.
Okay.
Whereas
Okay.
the normal style setup sometimes does, but sometimes doesn't.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Jane and Leon, you can probably go ahead. It might ask you to unmute on your screen there.
Yes, in the theater category, you have 3 organ sounds in there, and you can only play it on the upper keyboard. And my question is, where, because there's so many organ sounds in the regular preset categories, where would I find places to play those organ sounds? What type of songs or genre would I use those versus using the preset organ songs?
So that's a good question. So the category theater organs, that's what you're talking about, right?
Yes.
So like there's Theater 2 and Theater 3. They're sampled from 2 different instruments. The Theater 3 from the UK was sampled from an instrument in Blackpool, I believe. I'm not sure about where the US one was sampled, but essentially they're just 2 different theater organs is where they actually took the sounds from. Where you want to use it in your arrangements is really up to you. I mean, theater stuff I typically associate without a style. So if I was going to put on, let's say, Theater 3 UK, right? I might just turn on the easy button and play something, you know, I don't know, a ballad maybe. I mean, you could really use it for just about anything. That's kind of, I would say that's just up to you. Whatever, you know, what I would do is get to know the sounds. So if you go to Theater UK and you really love number 7, right, then you'd find a spot in your music where you think, oh, I think that theater organ would sound really nice.
Perfect. All right.
That more or less answer it?
Oh, I think you got muted again.
Okay,
put
we
Yeah,
got Marcia, looks like.
Yeah, go ahead, Marcia.
Yes. Yes. Hello.
Hi, Marcia.
We hear you.
Hi. I have a generic question. What if I want to pick out my own sounds, but I want like 2 different sounds, of course, one on the top and one on the bottom? How do I get that there and make it stick?
So I will give you the Cliff's Notes version because that is probably a whole workshop in and of itself.
Oh, okay.
However, what you can do, what instrument do you have, Marcia?
I have the Floridian. It's an A series.
Okay, so what you're going to have are a bunch of red and blue buttons on your right side of your instrument, kind of over here.
Yeah.
So there's going to be on the red part, there will be a thing that says upper on, lower left, and lower right. And then there's going to be with the blue ones, which are the solo sounds, upper on and lower right, and then there's a lower octave, which is something else. But essentially, when you pick a sound from the red buttons, you have to decide if you want it on the upper keyboard or the lower right, or potentially both, if you want to do that. And then same thing for the blue ones. You have to select a sound and then decide if you want it on the upper or the lower right. And then if you want to save it, you'd have to go into your banks and, you know, memorize to A1 or whatever.
Okay.
So that's the brief answer. That is a good idea for a longer workshop because that is something that a lot of people don't know how to do. And if you want to make your own custom sounds, that's something that is very helpful.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
All right, last question. Ron, go ahead, and then we'll move on.
It's Mary Banizak, Bryan.
Hi, Mary.
Okay, so you know I always have a question. Okay, you turn the machine on our marquee, what button is supposed to be orange? Number one?
I'm having a little trouble hearing you, Mary. Can you say again?
That's okay. Can you hear me now? Hear me?
Yep.
Okay. On the marquee, when you
Mhm.
turn the machine on, what's the orange button? You said that before you said anything, that one's going to be on. We're trying to find it on the marquee.
You're trying to find the orange button. Is that what you were
Right.
asking?
Right.
So when you turn it on, it's going to be just to the left of your numbers 1 through 10, and it should say Style Setup.
That's the one. Okay, Ron's going to go look now.
And when you turn on your instrument, the reason it's orange is because it's in standby mode, meaning that you have not yet picked a style. Now, it can be, in some instances, it can be off. Like, I don't know if you can tell on mine right now, that button is off because I'm actually on category preset over here. So it can be either off or orange or red. And the orange being it's in standby mode, waiting for you to pick a style, and the red being it's active. You've already selected a style, and whatever genre you've picked means that when the rhythm preset or style setup is red, that genre will have those melody instruments in your numbers 1 through 10.
Okay. Well, Ron's at the machine, so he'll show me. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. All right, I'll turn it over to Robert if you're there. Robert, are you around?
I'm here. Watching.
All right. Do you have any announcements for us today?
I do have announcements. Before I do, did Elizabeth? It looked like an Elizabeth Kunkel. Did you ever get a chance to get unmute? I wanted to see if she had a question or if... No.
Well, I don't remember.
Try it again. We'll see.
Well, from earlier, she was trying to unmute.
Oh yeah. I don't think
so-
that she ever did get unmuted. She is
Okay.
right now, though.
She's unmuted now. I
She's
just still don't
unmuted,
hear
but
her.
we can't hear you. I'm trying so hard. Okay. Well, I sent you a little chat earlier, and if you want to send a chat and ask the question while I'm doing announcements, I'll look at it in a minute. Just didn't want to leave you hanging there. So anyway, but we have a couple things that's going to be happening, and you're going to get a couple emails today. One of them is going to look like. Let me actually pull. I sent myself an email, a test email. Let me hit share here and go to my email. Where is it? There it is. So this is my inbox of my email. And so you could see you're going to get an email that looks something like this. And what it's going to say is it's going to look similar to what you've seen in the past. So don't just delete it because there's going to be some important information. Right now, I tentatively have the subject as music and education for all. I might adjust it to say something else, but just keep in mind that when you see this email, it's going to look like this. It's announcing to those who have not participated yet, as well as you folks. And it goes on about talking about our music classes. And in addition to our weekly, what I'm calling variety classes, we're going to do some workshops. We're going to start some what we call product workshops designed specifically for your instrument. And these workshops are different series. So you can see there I have the EX coming up. And it tells you the models that are represented. So if you're not sure, just take a look underneath the title. And it says, Aria, Grand Marquis, and Marquis. By the way, I tentatively have this scheduled. I'm going to be at a student's home that owns an Aria. So for those who have those class of instruments, I'm going to be doing this from a student's home. So I'll have the opportunity to really show off some of the features of those models without any issues. And then, of course, because of the panels of those in operation, in some cases are very similar, I put in here Rialto and Inspires are encouraged to attend. The SD and Easy series, because their instruments they're very similar in nature and for the most part operation, we're going to do a workshop for those students, and you'll see that I actually have two of them. And this is very important because we have a lot of students that are starting new in the hobby. They're just learning their instruments. Sometimes we talk about simple features that are very new. And so we're going to have two different workshops. We have an A series. There's all of the models represented. You're going to also see things that say, you know, SU owners are encouraged to attend. The reason for that is a lot of the operation on the SU models are very similar. So you're going to be able to benefit for that. And then we have one for the SU series, and then you see at this one I put A series are encouraged to attend. So we will have, you know, a workshop. We'll pick one of the SU models to teach on, and then, you know, A people can come and et cetera, et cetera. And then we have the EY series, which is Fanfare, Journey, Inspire, Rialto. Now, if there's a model that's not on this list, please contact your local store and ask which one would be ideal. I might have missed one, and we will make sure to get you on the right class, or email me, and I'll forward it to the appropriate people. Now, we have some students that are starting new in the hobby. I'm just learning to play music for the first time, so we're going to have a class for I just learned, or maybe I started to learn but had to stop because the pandemic shut down the stores and have to start over, or whatever the case is. We are going to have a very, very beginning class starting on the 17th. And the great thing about all these is we're going to have Sean Maloney teaching. Bryan's going to continue teaching. Joe's going to be teaching one of these. Joni Monero's going to be teaching. And as time goes on, we'll have other instructors teaching a variety of these workshops. These, by the way, are global in a fashion that all of the students across the board are going to be able to attend these. As we approach June, we're going to be opening up in our next phase, smallly but surely. We're working closely with our stores as far as how we want, what we expect as far as for the safety of our students and what have you, so stay tuned in for that. The second thing I'd like to share with you is an opportunity, and I'll put up here, you may have seen an email that said, that looks something like this. And unlike most Memorial Day sales, what I notice is I've gotten over 30 emails from J.C. Penney's and Hot Topics and Sears and all those whatever remaining stores are open, and they ended my sale on May 25th. Well, I decided to start it on the 25th and give our students an entire week. We have instruments. We have a good selection of models that are 50% off. And then we have another selection of models that represent some really great savings in addition to that. So I would encourage you to get to with your local stores and find out, because we've made a lot of happy people. And this is how we are funding our music club activity, so that when we begin to open up in June, we can just continue doing a little bit of in-store, out-of-store, or both, whatever your comfort level is. And last but not least, on announcements, next Friday, tomorrow Friday, we're going to do another Facebook Live, and as of right now, we are tentatively doing it as a Facebook Live, and it's going to be featuring Sean Maloney. You guys have been seeing him sit there behind the controls, and let's spotlight the video on Sean. You put it on Bryan. Let's spotlight.
I already did.
Let's spotlight you, Sean. There. No, that's Bryan. Is it on you right now?
Yep.
I don't see. Okay, speaking.
Well, I think it's just you. I think everybody else sees me.
No, let's put it on you. Anyway, that guy who's been behind the controls that knows all these things, believe it or not, he actually can play. I think he's up to his 4th song now. Is that right?
I'm on 5 or 6, actually.
5 or 6 now. So between that and Joe Thompson playing, we'll have a full concert. No, actually, we got talent out there, and that's going to be coming to you from Mesa, Arizona. So right now we are tentatively thinking about doing it as a Facebook, but we're also toying with the idea of doing it through Zoom only, one or the other. But what we want to do is we don't want to do both at the same time yet, because we had some technical issues where it kept bumping us off. So that's going to be coming up. So having said that, let's see, okay, so Elizabeth did get her question to me. We have When using song setup, I should not turn on category setups. Correct. Did you hear that, Brian?
I did.
So the question is, when using song setups, I should not turn on category setups. Correct? Question mark.
So the answer to that would be, if you want to, you should do it. Just keep in mind that what song setup does is it sets up the music style, the tempo, and your melody sounds. But it only gives you two. It only gives you one sound for the upper, one sound for the lower with song setup. So if you don't want to use, let's say if you put on song setup and it gives you choir and trumpet, right? Choir on the upper, trumpet on the lower. If you don't like those sounds, then you should switch. Now you could switch to rhythm preset, or you could switch to category, one or the other. But if you don't like the sounds that they give you, definitely do switch. And it'll keep the same music style that it's set up.
Okay, so hopefully that answers your question, Elizabeth, as far as the what you were trying to ask earlier. But with that said, we'll finish up with a little bit of music, and then we'll turn it over. Is there a hand raise? Is that you, Carolyn?
Yeah, I think we got a couple.
Carolyn and Nancy.
Okay. I can't hear you, Carolyn. I see your mouth moving, but
she's
You should
muted.
be able to unmute yourself. It
There you
should
go.
pop up on your screen.
Listed. Can you tell me, is the Monday class going to be on a regular basis?
The calendar's just going to show it on Monday, and the following Monday is going to be another workshop. Now, it will be on a regular basis as far as moving forward. I might do it once a month. I don't know. It just depends on my accessibility to an instrument, depends on our schedule. What we're doing with the Thursday class, we have one before this. We're going to ask those students to go either Wednesday or Thursday. So we're trying to open up some of our schedule throughout the month. But what we're finding is we're adding all these other workshops, and we also have a lot of demonstrations throughout the month. So we're running out of room to do everything. But what I will say is that if I do it again, say the following month,
Okay.
I'm going to give you such a good class that it'll last you a month. Okay. All right. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over. I've got another demonstration coming up here in a little while. I'm going to turn it over to Bryan. Maybe you can finish off with a little quick number there. I think you have a fun song that you played earlier. Hopefully you play the same one you did for the other class. Just an FYI, we've had some students asking about our stores. We are opening in very, very small phases, so keep that in mind. Our store here, for example, in Tucson, I have a relatively decent-sized store, but when you have all the instruments, I only have so much room to do our social distancing, what have you. So we're being very strategic and cautious of how we do that. We just don't want to make any student whatsoever feel like they're put in a position that's not following the guidelines that we're receiving from, as you know, from the CDCs and what have you. So anyway, we're going to keep you informed. The stores will keep you informed as well. And as we move forward, we're going to slowly but surely add a lot of this type of technology to some of the stores as well, so that they can teach direct. You can have it directly with them, and we're just going to really just broaden our horizons here, in-store, out-of-store, online, both, with your local store, across the company, et cetera, et cetera. So with that said, Bryan, can you play us a farewell song for now?
Of course. I will play that same one I played before. So I played Girl from Ipanema earlier, which was written by Joe Beam, who is probably the most prolific bossa nova composer of all time. And so if you're into that type of music, I would highly recommend anything by him, including this one he also wrote, which is called Wave. So I'm going to use a style Latin guitar, and I would like to thank you all again for joining us today on Zoom. Hopefully you learned something, and we will close out today with Wave. All right, so that was Wave by Joe Beam. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. And it was a pleasure, as always, to be with you here from Octave Hall in Clearwater, Florida. And we hope to see you on our next Zoom session.
If you want to say goodbye or thank you, you can always unmute yourself now, and we're going to head out shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, folks,
Thank you from
I asked
Wisconsin.
everybody last week. To bring a virtual apple. I brought my virtual apple for the teacher today. There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great class.
Thank you, everybody.
Wow.
Robert,
Thank you all.
Brian.
Good to see you all. Thank you.
Class. Great.
Hello.
Bye.
Good to see you, everyone.
Joe.
Leave.
So you got mail?
Yeah, just 2 pieces.
Oh, have you gone to get